obviously having the CPUC certificate in order to proceed with the power line. Now on the federal side, when this was approved, they did an EIR, the Environmental Impact Report, under California Environmental Quality Act, and then they did an EIS, an Environmental Impact Statement, under the federal National Environmental Policy Act. That provided the environmental basis for decisions on the federal side, including BLM. On January 20th, BLM issued its decision approving the power link and amended its resources management plan to allow, essentially its land use plan, to allow the power line to come through the BLM lands. And they also granted rights of way, which are also necessary for SDG&E to come through BLM lands. There have been 3 notices of appeals filed on that decision. The organization there that has jurisdiction is the Department of Interior Board of Land Appeals. And right now, your local organizations, protecting our communities, others, are one of the parties to that appeal. That included a motion to stay any actions by SDG&E to actually further the power line, bringing out the bulldozers. And there's also preparations to go into federal court as they're beyond now the stay period. And so there's consideration going on as to whether or not additional federal actions need to be filed should SDG&E start to take actions to actually, move dirt, to actually start building something. At the present time, there's no anticipated date of decision on the Board of Land Appeals. The word came out that they were trying to get this expedited. SDG&E has asked for an expedited decision. The reality is that this is a massive project in terms of impacts and in terms of the record. And the Interior Board of Land Appeals is a little bit overwhelmed. I mean, they're used to smaller type of projects. I mean, now they're getting boxes and boxes of things, and they don't even know, when they'll be able to look through that to get a decision. The primary issues in the land appeals and the BLM side, one has to do with the NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, which was the Environmental Impact Statement. And again, it's many of the same issues on the state side, the adequacy of the environmental analysis, looking at alternative routes, looking at fire risks, did it adequately consider the cumulative impacts. There were also other issues that are being raised in terms of compliance with the Endangered Species Act. Did it adequately consider cultural resources? And in FLPMA, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act has its own requirements in terms of how you balance uses in federal lands. These are all issues that are being raised in the Bureau of the BLM decision before the IBLA. Now, there's other federal proceedings. The U.S. Forestry Service has not yet issued a decision on the use of Forestry Service lands for the power link. Interestingly, the Forest Service actually submitted a letter saying that the route was inadequately identified in the EIR, EIS, to a point where they're even satisfied that sufficient environmental analysis was done for them to make a decision. So they still need to make a decision as to whether additional environmental analysis or other analyses are even necessary for forest lands. They were saying they were going to try to have a decision in July. Right now it's unclear as to what the impacts of the appeals before the IBLA and perhaps any other litigation that may go on the CPUC decision, might have on the Forestry Service. I know they have a concern that if the environmental analysis there is under attack, that they want to go ahead and make a decision based on those environmental documents, and then they'll just get brought into the same proceedings. So they may decide just to wait and see. But that right now is one of the things the Forestry Service is considering. Now, also on the federal side, there are other potential permits. Fish and Wildlife Service dealing with endangered species. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers may have to weigh in on impacts on stream beds. and the US EPA may still have to weigh in on certain actions as they go. But those are decisions that have not yet been made, and those are not sort of the lead decisions that right now have been made and are under attack. So what's the future hold? Well, challenges to the CPUC in state courts, both CEQA and as to the underlying decision to approve the power line. The challenges to BLM is now proceeding. It's anticipated that if the Land Appeals Board does not overturn the decision, then it will be under review in federal court. Forestry Service, we're still awaiting their decision, and there are many possible challenges along the same lines that have already been raised here to that decision, unless the Forestry Service decides to reopen the environmental issues and do their own analysis in order to try to make their decision one based on more sound environmental documentation. The point of this, to give you the context, is if these challenges succeed, basically SDG&E would have to revisit the environmental and other issues on which the decisions were overturned. It might not take them all the way back to square one because a lot of work has been done, and if they still want to try to put a power line through, even succeeding in those may not completely stop them if they really want to mount a battle to try to come back, do the environmental review, and try to put a southern route in. However, if they succeed in these challenges, they will now know what the big hurdles are that they'll have to be overcome, and know that once they go through this, you all are going to be out there, watching them again. Now, what happens if the challenges fail? If these challenges fail, and there's a lot of them, and we may not know for quite a while whether these challenges will win or not. That's the point at which SDG&E will be actually acquiring land. I mean, right now, you'll hear more about the process for eminent domain. So SDG is getting in the position of acquiring the lands. However, we would not necessarily anticipate that they're going to go out and buy up all these lands along the route, because if those routes are overturned, then all of a sudden they've got a lot of land they own and they can't do anything with it. And they might not even be able to ever put it through that route again, even if they got a southern power line, it may be a different route. So part of the reason we're here tonight is sort of looking at, okay, what happens if these challenges fail? And all of you already are having to deal with SDG&E and their agents who are now knocking at your doors and trying to get on your land. My only comment is just remember, these are not your friends. I mean, not only are they trying to build a power line, but they are not out to pay you the highest value for your property. They know how to try to work the system to pay what they want to pay, and you'll now have a presentation by Bob Miller, who's sparred with the utility companies and others, and can provide you an overview of what that process will entail. So encourage you to stay involved in this. Those that fought the northern route, they really got engaged and fought it. Unfortunately, the way this thing came out, they ended up shutting it down, gave a consolation prize in the southern route. One thing I can tell you is there's probably two people, only two, that have really not only looked at all this record, but actually heard the record. And that is the administrative law judges, the designated commissioner at the CPUC, and both of them ruled that this power line shouldn't be here, or shouldn't be here on the conditions under which it was granted. This went through the CPUC by the other four commissioners, who did not go through the whole record, who did not listen to all of this, and they decided for other reasons to put it somewhere else. Now, there were 4 votes that way and 1 the other, and that's part of what the judicial challenge will be all about. So, stay engaged, keep supporting it, but at the same time, listen to Bob Miller, so you can also protect your rights, should the challenges that have been done, not make its way through to a successful end. So thank you, and I can answer some questions afterwards if you want.